Hello and welcome to the Peaceful Empowerment Work Show. We are coming to you live on the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I am your co-host, Judy Forder, and I am here with my co-host in peace, Miss
Kris Burke. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Before we get started, if you've been enjoying our content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to help us spread the word that peace truly is possible. Today's
Indeed.
topic, indeed. Today's topic, work. Just a paycheck or a purposeful passion?
Ah.
Yes, take a deep breath.
Yeah. Oof. I just instantly see myself standing there saying, I need to do something I care about. I can't just work for money, right? And people thinking like, what the hell's wrong with her?
He's crazy, or she must be loaded to have that kind of flexibility.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It just never occurred to me because it wasn't part of my experience growing up, either my family or culture. It never occurred to me that it would be a natural outcome of doing something that you're passionate about, that you would attract all the resources that you needed. And the resources meaning, the knowledge, the skills, the people, the money, the opportunities, like all of that would come to you if you were connected with this, with your passion, if you were feeling really inspired, right? Because we know that's the fourth realm.
Yes. Yeah, and when I was growing up, my dad was, for a living, he was a professional headhunter.
Mm.
So, he would start us. He always laughed with my little sister. It was about, okay, it's probably easier for us to figure out what you don't want to do, but you do want to. Let's start the process of elimination.
It's so true.
Yes. When he started asking me, what are you thinking about for the future? It was very simple. He's like, what's most important to you? I said, I can wear shorts and sneakers. He's like, okay, well, that breaks it down a bit. So
It does.
I was a physical education teacher for 24 years, teacher and
Mhm.
coach. And for the longest time, that really was my passion because it was my way to reach and help other people and help these kids. I really wanted to help empower the girls and help them
Right.
understand that they are to be respected and that they had a place in this world and everybody shows up with a gift. And through coaching, it was a lot of, everybody has something to offer to the team. We
Yeah.
just need to figure out which each of you have. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I was pretty fortunate in that aspect where I was in sixth or seventh grade and knew I wanted to be a teacher. So
Mm.
it was a no brainer. That's where I was going. I was going to be a teacher. And when I got out, within a year, I got a job. And that's what I did for the next 24 years and kind of didn't really even think about it because it was filling my soul. And yes, it was extremely frustrating at times, but it truly was my passion. Coaching was my thing. It was my jam. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
still do it.
I do, just in a very different way. And it's
Yeah.
funny 'cause I've been out for almost 9 years.
Hmm.
And the last, I can say confidently, the last 10 were a struggle
Mm.
because everything had shifted and I'd love to say it shifted for the better, but it didn't.
Right.
It just became more and more obvious that the focus was not on what's best for kids. And it really caused a conflict within me.
Yeah. Well, exactly the right conflict for you to decide, I can't do this anymore and I need to go do something else that feels better to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
such a good point. You know, like you knew what you wanted to do. I wanted to be a vet when I was a kid. And then I hit college and took advanced chemistry. And I decided maybe veterinary science was not for me. Um, and so, then it was kind of like, well, I'll do this and do that, and ended up in business. But it's funny because as I look back, I can see that each phase of my life, I was so sure that I was kind of off path and I was trying to find the right place. It was, doing the Goldilocks thing, oh, it's not this, it's not that. But I can see now in hindsight how every single place that I spent time working was, I was learning something important about myself and about the world,
Mhm.
and maybe picking up particular skills and knowledge and experiences that I absolutely needed for the next stage, right? The next place I
Mhm.
was going. And so um, I don't think that we get off path as much as we think we do. I think we just sometimes overstay in a place that no longer fits.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of that is because of the financial security. For
Mhm.
me, in my experience, it was like it's a consistent paycheck. It's
Yeah.
what I've known for so many years. And yeah, until the universe or higher power, whatever you want to call it, makes it so uncomfortable that you just can't stay anymore.
Right.
And yeah, that was the point I hit. I just couldn't do it anymore. I felt like I wasn't making an impact. I felt like I wasn't doing, if I wasn't helping myself, I certainly wasn't helping anyone around me.
Right. Right. And we just grow resentful, right?
Mm.
If we feel like we're not learning and we're not making a contribution that feels meaningful to us personally, and we don't feel valued by the people that we're not making that contribution for, then we tend to get resentful, right? And so then we're coasting through our day. We're probably not feeling very well. We're probably snippy, complaining, just generally contributing to that battleground low energy vibe.
Yeah. And quite honestly, it is the very last thing that our students need. It
Yes.
is, and we were always taught, whatever's going on in your life, leave it at the door. When you come
Mhm.
into the gym, you're there for the kids, and I did my very best to show up in that energy every day. And my teaching career and my second career overlapped.
Mhm.
So I put a lot of my learnings into practice
Yeah.
in the gym and when I was working with kids. And the most interesting thing I figured out when I first, dove into the Reiki and the energy work and all that and intuition is that I used to sit with high school kids, middle school kids for hours. They would come and talk to me
Mm.
about all their problems. And I would, counsel. I would counsel then. But on the driving home, sometimes I'd be like, well, that was some really good shit that came out. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
So little did I know I was tapping into intuition then,
Right.
and it wasn't something that I was aware of until I learned what it was.
Right. Right. Yeah. And when we're in the right place, when we're really doing work that's ours to do in the world, our intuition and our inspiration are more accessible, right? That's why when somebody really gets into their groove and they're really doing their work that they're here to do, they stand out.
Mhm.
They seem gifted, they make the hard look easy, right? And that's because they really get access to those parts of their being that give them the information they need, that people who are not in integrity in that space or not really passionate about what they're doing,
Mhm.
don't have access to that.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're when you're aligned, everything falls into place. And it's funny because I know I talked about my nephew last week, but as soon as you were saying all that, it made me think about him because my brother-in-law actually made the observation at my nephew's wedding. And he
Mm.
said, "I know we give Jack a hard time a lot because of everything just working for him. But I have to tell you, he makes it all look very easy."
Yes.
And yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah.
You nailed
Yeah.
it right.
Absolutely. When we really trust ourselves. So if we're, I think now back on situations where I was just miserable, right? There are companies that where people will stay who are miserable because it's comfortable and
Mhm.
you can keep a paycheck, right? And the high achievers, like the people who come in who are excited to make a difference and make a contribution, stay for a while and just get frustrated because they feel like they're on their own, they're going against the tide. So those high achiever people get frustrated and leave. Meanwhile, the people that, don't feel confident enough to go out and find work that's more aligned with them will stay, and you end up with an organization that's just very unhealthy,
Hmm.
where people are just they're depressed because they don't want to be there, and they openly talk about the fact that they don't want to be there and they feel trapped, right? So
Oh,
in those yeah, in those situations, I can look back to when I was one of those trapped people, when it was like, "Oh crap, I can't leave again." Um being in that situation, if I had gone in with a where can I make a contribution to myself in my workplace today attitude, I would be really interested to see how things might have been different, how my experience might have been different, and how that may have spiraled through other people in my workplace.
hmm, yeah, absolutely. Um, Definitely makes me think about when I was in, because I mean, it's education.
Mhm.
And if you talk about leaving education, especially after you have a certain amount of years in, you're just an idiot. Yeah. How can you be so dumb? You're so close to retirement. You only have 10 more years. And I'm thinking, 10 more years? I'm not going to live 10 more years.
Right.
Can't do this for 10 more years.
Yeah. Yeah.
People really look at you like you're crazy. My
Right.
best friend who's still teaching, I swear, if she could have spoken her truth to me, she would have had me committed. She's like, I just don't even understand.
Right. Right.
And all I knew was I had to. And I knew it didn't make sense. Hell, it didn't make sense to me,
Right.
but I knew change had to happen. And I just took the leap.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And a lot of people talk about retirement, right? So the focus is on get a job where there's a good pension and good benefits at retirement age. And it's becoming more and more clear for our generation and below that, we're not cars. We don't need to be retired. We really need to have um, a meaningful purpose that fits the different stages that we go through in a life cycle, right? So if you think of 70, 80, 90-year-old, gosh, I saw somebody 100 and something the other day who was still completely with it. And I thought, during that time of life, you still want to feel like you're doing something meaningful. I mean, you still want to be engaged in life, in the world. And at that point, you have a lot of wisdom that frankly can't be bought. I mean, you either get wisdom from experience or you get it from people who already have it. So just this idea of how do we create sort of reframe the way we approach work, and instead of looking for what kind of job can I endure for long enough to be able to retire and not have to worry about money, what if we said how can I create a lifestyle for myself where in each phase I'm uniquely rewarded,
Mhm.
right? And engage in making a contribution. And the universe, all right, I'm going to tell you something. Some of you are going to roll your eyes. I'm going to tell you anyway. The universe will compensate you for the value that you contribute to the world. There's actually a fantastic book called The Go Giver, the Gogiver. Fantastic book. And there's a, a great following around people who are learning that the more value you add to the world, the more currency flows your way.
Yes, and that's interesting because next week we'll talk about your relationship with money. But
Mhm.
also, what goes along with that is your relationship with money.
Yeah,
Because if you carry patterns of lack, yes, you can be putting and serving your community and humanity, but you're still struggling to have the abundance flow.
right,
And that's because there's something within there that needs to be healed and
right,
moved through. Yeah.
right.
And let's talk about society. Like I said, teacher, you got to have a teacher pension, and you're leaving, you're crazy.
Mhm.
So, we're taught that you go to school, you find a career, you stay there till you can retire, and then hopefully you'll have 10 to 15 years where you can live and enjoy retirement,
Right.
you know. And it's interesting because I just dropped my daughter off at college. She is a freshman, and she would get frustrated with me because she was like, "Mom, what am I going to do with my life?" And blah, blah, blah. I was like, "Babe, what makes you happy? What brings you joy?" And
Yeah.
she was like, "I can't do, what am I supposed to do? Things that bring me joy? That's not going to make me money." No, that's a lie. We've been conditioned to believe the lie.
Right. Right. Absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah.
My kids used to get frustrated with me too when I would say, "Figure out what makes you happy and do that." Because
Yeah.
it will light you up. You will your what you do, the contribution that you make to the world, what you're discovering and learning, um, will light you up to a degree that you will become consumed, right? Your inspiration and your intuition will just fill you up. Um, and you'll think about it night and day, not in a worrying way, but in an inspired way. So, um, it's important to have something that you enjoy so much that you want to be thinking about it, right? Like our work, and Judy just did a brilliant little Houdini move. That was fantastic. Um, welcome back.
Thank you.
In our work, we talk about this. We think about it all the time, right? It's like because things pop into your mind, and then we'll text one another, or the next time we have a meeting, we'll like, oh my gosh, I had this thought. We're doing that because we love the work we do, and it's interesting and exciting and makes us happy. And so those channels of intuition and inspiration are open to receive things that just light us up. That we go, oh, this is good stuff, right? But if you're working in a job where you're like, well, how much did I make this year? And um, if that's the focus, then that's not going to bring about inspiring, pockets of joy or balloons. I'm seeing like balloons kind of coming in and just popping and all the goodness coming out. And you're like, yay. That's what makes us alive, feel alive, and thrilled to be alive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember, when I started learning about the zones and we started, putting all of that together, uh, very much remembering when going to work, I totally zone one,
Mhm.
totally zone one. There was no inspiration there. There was no, and I had been doing it for so long that you kind of fall into that routine mode. Okay. And it didn't matter what happened. I could always pull a lesson out of my butt and make it
Right.
happen and make it roll. And my joy in being a teacher was the interactions with the kids.
Mhm.
I didn't like dealing with all the administration and all the red tape and all the bumper stickers and bullshit.
Right.
That was always a frustration to me. So the joy was being there with the kids. And when I could focus on that, things were really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, the more I realized it just wasn't a good fit, the more uncomfortable I got, the more zone one I got, because it was like, what the hell am I going to do? I
Right.
got nothing,
Right.
and then I started to think of an exit strategy. Okay, well, maybe I could do nursing, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that. So the anger pulled me into zone two, but then it was a lot of, okay, well, I'm gonna have to go to school with this, can I go to school and still teach? So it was all that mind back and forth, well, making this plan and then making that plan.
Mm.
And honestly, it wasn't until I had my first Reiki session where I was like, I don't know what the hell just happened in there, but I need more. And it was a spark of hope
Mhm.
that there is something different. And it was with that work that I was able to move into zone three and be like, okay, this isn't a fit for me anymore,
Right.
and I want to do something that makes my heart light up, makes my heart sing.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, teaching wasn't making my heart sing anymore.
Yeah, and that's such a good point because and as you took us through the map, um, not wanting to do something is not the right energy for moving into a new
Not at all.
chapter,
Not at
right? We all remember, you know, because we're talking to students all the time. We went through this ourselves, like going through that. I'll do anything other
but
than this, right? Yeah, because the grass is always greener on the other side because you're not actually experiencing that. So you think everything about where you are right now stinks.
mhm,
But actually, that's just because you're in zone one, or we are in
mhm.
zone one or zone two energy.
Yeah.
When you're there, it does, you know, life does suck. But if you move yourself to zone three, you can be in exactly the same place. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I never noticed before, but this, you know, this one person is such a delight. And I wouldn't have this person as a friend or a colleague if I were to move. And it doesn't mean you stay for that. It's that you start to notice that there are things there that will feed you
Mhm,
until you know what the next step is. And with that positive mindset, with that higher vibration, the next opportunity will show up faster and it will be clear to you. And the really interesting thing, it won't feel so risky.
mm-mm. No, and that's why I said there was the overlap,
Yes.
because the more work I did, the more I was able to come into school and be like, "Oh," start observing things and see where I could still have a positive impact, where I could show up happy in a higher then, then I was learning all about vibration, but show up happy and in my joy, and how that alone could impact the people around me
Yes.
and start to shift the environment. So my last 2 years of teaching was um, me like playing with the energy of me and
Mhm.
seeing what kind of effect it had on other people,
Yeah.
which really, holds you accountable for how you show up, especially with
Yes.
kids, because kids don't have the art of masking as much as the adults do. So when you're working with elementary school kids and your room of kindergartners come in and your energy is prickly and off the charts, then all of a sudden they're prickly and off the charts. I had to check in and be like, okay, what am I doing to these kids? How can I help myself and how can I help them?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, we did a program last June with actually and high school kids. And the kids came in and, you know, there were stories about how much they liked school or didn't like school or how engaged they were or not engaged. And after about 5 days in this environment that was really unconditionally loving, you couldn't make a mistake. If you needed to sleep, you could sleep, right? And there are people who are just, "Oh, that sounds just terrible. What about the rules?" Right? And we said, "Oh, look what the rules are doing to our kids." You know, they've got them all contorted and distorted and afraid to say what they're thinking and feeling
Mhm,
because what if it doesn't fit into the right box, right? Then they're going to get the looks and they're going to get the lectures and all of those things. And so we just said, you know, it's okay to be you. Whatever's true for you today, you bring that here. As long as we don't hurt anybody else, it's safe to be you. And I'll tell you, and after 4 or 5 days, the transformations, it was like we were working with completely different children,
mhm.
right? So it was just such confirmation that when the way we show up, kids will um, adjust to the circumstances. And if they basically, like we talk about, if they sense the battleground, you're going to see their coping mechanisms, their defense mechanisms, right? And if they sense a safe place, you're going to all of a sudden see this curious, humble, creative, vibrant being that was under the layers of fear.
Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty clear that your purpose in life is to bring peace everywhere you go. And when, when you created that environment of peace and non-judgment for those children, it allowed them the safety to breathe and relax. We've talked a lot on this show about how, as a collective, we spend so much time in zone one and fight or flight,
Mm.
and all the distractions that are going on, that your program just allowed them the space to breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'll say, and Judy's purpose, like Judy helped me to feed my unicorn and tame my dragon. Right? So as I was going through this process, like I could hold peace for myself and the people who wanted peace, who were able, who had done enough work to be able to choose peace. But I was not able to hold peace in an environment where, like kind of a mainstream environment where people were peopling, as our as our friend Jen says. Yeah. So Y you really helped me as I would go into these environments where I would offer peace and I would say, "How can I help you?" And people would get pissed. And I would come back and be like, "I don't get it. Why are they so angry that I'm offering to help?" Right? And it's because people in the battleground are always angry. And if
Mhm.
you come in and it's clear that you're not in the battleground, well, nothing pisses them off more. Right? So that it's something to know. Like if you're going into your workplace and you've made a commitment to hold peace for yourself and the people who want it, you have to realize that it's going to get a reaction from the people who don't want peace, the people who lose their sense of control or their sense of certainty if all of a sudden the rules of the game change.
Mhm.
If we start putting people first, ahead of the rules and ahead of the profits and all of that kind of thing, then their world, their sense of world, we talked about the worldview, starts to shift and change, and that scares people.
Mhm. Yeah, that's flipping things upside down,
Yeah. Or
right side up. It makes me laugh now to think that we aren't, as kids, encouraged to find the passions that will guide us through life and also help us sustain ourselves.
yeah.
It's when joy and love are put on the back burner, we need to wake up and be like, hey, hold on now. And I honestly, anybody who's watching, none of this stuff even started to work through my mind and my heart until I had my daughter because I started to see life through different eyes.
Hmm.
It wasn't about me just working through the day till I die. It was about what kind of future is am I providing? Am I helping build for this kid?
Yeah.
Because right now, me working to get through the day, that's not how I want her to live.
Right. Right.
So I think there's a huge collective shift going on as far as this is concerned too. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like more and more people, you hear more and more people leaving careers that they've been in
Hmm.
forever, making
Hmm.
all kinds of money,
Hmm.
but it wasn't filling them up.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it doesn't serve, it doesn't make their hearts sing. I know people laugh when I say that, but the work I do makes my heart sing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it brings the money. I mean, we're going to talk about that next week. But when your heart is singing, like I said, I'm going to say this again because in our society, in this battleground mentality, we've been conditioned to think that we have to choose the money or the purpose. So if
Mhm,
you're out there working on your purpose and you love what you're doing and the money's coming in drips and you're not having enough, that's not a sign that you're in the wrong purpose.
mm,
It's a sign that you've got some blocks around something else to work on,
mhm.
right? And it may even be related to your purpose that those blocks are, but it's not that you've made a mistake in deciding to follow your heart because that is never the wrong move.
Mm,
You
no.
just may need some support in breaking through. I will tell you that I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, there were a few years that it was total desert. I mean, like dry, arid desert, and I, I look back and think, could I have done something differently and da 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 da. And I realized that it was during those desert years that money lost its grip on me.
Mhm,
And I realized I'm provided with what I need. Um, the universe provides through lots of different ways. But as I started to relax about whether or not I would have what I needed in doing my purpose, it started to just shift up.
Yeah.
Um,
And when you release the expectation on how that was going to show up,
yes.
it like blew the doors open.
Yes. Yes. My husband and my mother have both been like incredibly generous and supportive. They had no idea what I was doing. They didn't understand why I was doing it. And yet they could feel, right? There was a part of them that could feel that this was important and wanted to support me in the ways that they could. And they did. And I had so much for years. I had so much guilt around, oh, I shouldn't be, I should be making contributions in other ways, in financial ways, right? Because there are no contributions that matter except for contributing to the family in money, in terms of money, right? And then at some point along the way, I really realized, wow, I'm making a difference in my family, a difference that they appreciate, a difference that was tangible. And I said, there's value to that. Like, I know there's value and they see there's value. And all of a sudden, I could let go of the idea that I'd been a freeloader. I mean,
Mhm.
I'd worked as hard as anybody I know and tried to get through the layers of stuff so that I could help in the world, right?
Mhm.
Help to lead us through this transformation. And yet I did not value it. It was me.
Mhm.
I did not value it enough to allow the universe to provide money. I still valued money, or the contribution of money, more.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this a lot outside of the show. I don't know that we've mentioned it too much on the show, but we do the work to get out of zone 1 and then into zone 2 and then into zone 3, and we're like, hey, everybody needs to join us in zone 3. Yet we don't allow everyone to see the amount of joy that we have when we're chilling. I mean, zone 3 becomes our default setting. Not that we don't flow through the other zones as well, but when we're spending the majority of time in our zone 3, living, soul forward, intuitively guided, hearts are making decisions, and good stuff is happening, everything's aligning, we're kind of like, shh, shh, don't. If we let everybody know how freaking awesome this is, it might scare them.
That's exactly it.
So we're dripping. And I was like, you know what? People need to see. We're like, come on, come join us. But yet they don't see. We don't let them see the joy that lives within us, the
Sure.
love that we're carrying. So the past couple of weeks, probably the last few month or so, Kris and I have been like, okay, we're showing them up. We're showing up and we're letting it be seen. We're not
Yeah.
keeping it under wraps anymore.
Right, right. Well, in that battleground experience, we were so used to people being threatened or jealous or resentful, right? And so when you show up and they're like, the story of woe, right? And in our society, most of us like, how are you? We got the Eeyore thing going. And then someone's like, oh, really? Wow, that's terrible. Yeah, no, I'm doing all of these things and it's fantastic. And I love my life, right? There's just sort of this, it's very awkward energy because
Yeah.
frankly, when you meet somebody who's at zone 1 or 2, and you're at zone 3, somebody's got to move. You can't actually relate unless you lower yourself to zone 1 or 2, wherever they are, or they raise themselves to zone 3. And they're not going to raise themselves to zone 3 when they feel scared. None of
Hmm.
us are, right? I'm talking about all of us. And so what did we do, Judy? We got in the habit of lowering ourselves.
Hmm. Yeah. We would we'd jump into the battlefield with them so that they
Yeah.
didn't feel alone.
Hmm. Yeah.
And thinking that maybe we can give them some support and guidance and bridge their way over to zone 3.
Hmm.
But and I think, again, I attribute a lot of it to the collective shift. More and
Yeah.
more people are seeking joy, happiness, fulfillment.
Yeah.
So because of that, that's why we're being encouraged to take the lampshades off and let it shine.
Yeah.
We really are. We're being challenged to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, we are determined. We know that our purpose is to stay at this vibration so that we can invite you to come join us.
Yeah.
The days of jumping into the battlefield. I feel like I can say I love myself enough not to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, as we've reframed it, right? As we've continued to do our work, which we share here on the show, this is an ongoing process. We've also realized and been able to reframe and say, wow, when I show someone joy, because it's not my joy that I'm showing, it's not Judy's joy she's showing, it's the joy that's inside of every single one of us, that's accessible to all of us, though we may have a hard time connecting with it when it's under the layers of worry and regret and shame and guilt and all of the battleground stuff. All these
Mhm.
ideas of the way things should be and the way we should be, the way we shouldn't be. It might be hard to find our joy. But if we stand there and show our joy, we're offering the invitation. We're saying, you can have this too. And there are a lot of people who say, oh my God, I want that. I can feel it inside of me and I don't know how to sustain it. And so
Mhm.
then we can say, great, we can help you because we took this, took that journey, particular stage of the journey, and we're continuing to do it. Right. And people who get turned off by it or too afraid, because that's really what it is, who get threatened, they may go back and say, no, thank you. And they'll go back into battleground mode, but they know it's possible now.
There's a choice.
There's a choice.
We allow people to see that there's a choice. I know it, people say, how you doing? And if I talk about all the good things, the first thing I would be asked is, oh, are you making money?
Right.
Are you getting paid? Are
Yeah.
you? So that's why I stopped talking about it so much because it was always about the money. Well, if you're not making money out of it, then it's just a hobby.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I had someone say to me actually at an event last weekend, like, oh, are you busy? Sort of a fishing, like, and it was so funny. Yeah, it was incredibly busy and incredibly happy and doing exactly what I want to and not worrying about it and not defending it.
Mhm.
No longer, we're not in the battleground anymore. We don't need to defend. I didn't need to give words.
Mm-mm.
I didn't feel the need to pump myself up or to put a wall between me or anything. I just smiled and said, yes.
Yep. Yeah. No, no shame. No shame
No,
in our game.
no, no, that's battleground,
Hmm.
right?
Yes. And so much has shifted since the declaration of people first.
Yeah.
When you put people first and you're moving forward in life, being guided by your heart, intuition, whatever it is you want to call it, everything falls in line.
Hmm.
The universe will provide.
Yeah. And you start to notice, we've had people talking about this a lot lately because all of us kind of went through a shift, along with the collective at the same time, where we noticed that, gee, I'm not worrying. Gee, I'm not getting triggered by people. Like I'm looking at in family situations for a lot of people. I mean, those can be the most triggering. And people are coming back from spending time with family and just being like, wow, I was really at peace, even when people were in chaos, even when they were jumping into the quicksand and, oh my God, I'm drowning. I was really able to stand on the side and offer them a stick,
Hmm.
be that steady presence that could say, tell me about what's going on. Tell me about what you're thinking and feeling, and I will not judge. It just doesn't come up in the energy anymore when you're in zones 3 and 4, right? So I won't judge you and I'll be that steady presence. Whereas in the past, each and every one of us say we would have dove
Jump.
into the,
Yep.
yeah, dove into the quicksand with him and said, here, let me save you.
Hmm.
Right? And think about that for a moment. We all know that we can't save anybody if we're going over our heads in quicksand. But that
Hmm.
was the way we would handle it. And the people in the pit, quite frankly, expect us to dive in with them.
Hmm.
And when we don't, they're like, what's going on? This is the agreement that we have. It's like that Seinfeld episode with the pigeons, I thought we had an agreement with the pigeons that they would get out of the way when we were driving our cars. So it's this idea that we have an agreement with one another, that we're going to behave in certain ways. But when those ways were keeping us and reinforcing the battleground, reinforcing our fear and insecurity and lack of worth, we're doing ourselves and one another a huge service when we decide to pull back from those behaviors and say, no, I'm going to stand here and be a safe place for you. I'm
Yes.
not going to buy into your victim state. I'm also not going to judge it because I have my own. I've been there. I know what it's like. And I'm going to stand here and say, right now, you feel powerless. But from where I'm standing, I know you're not.
Yes. So I believe it is time for us to wrap up.
What? How does that happen?
I know. That went very fast, as they always seem to do.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
How do we
So,
do?
I don't know. I feel like we did pretty good. I mean, follow your heart, live your purpose, and if you need help getting there, reach out to us, www.masterfulu.com,
Mhm.
masterfulu.com. We have
Yeah.
3 levels of engagement. Kris, would you like to roll with that?
I would. You can listen to the show. First of all, go to masterfulu.com/get your map. You can download the map that we show during every episode and that we refer to all the time. Um, and then you can either play along at home, kind of self study mode by listening to the show. You could augment that with workshops, which we offer once a month. Um, and you could also take our 12-week program. And we're working on something so cool. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be able to release. We've come up with a way of asking you questions that will actually lead you through a recommended course of action to work on the area of your life that you're wanting to focus on, in the way that will align with where you are right now. And so we're really excited about releasing that. And of course, I haven't said anything. No, mum's the word. We won't talk about that until it's done. I'm excited.
Well, alrighty.
Yeah. Anything we can do to make your journey more peaceful, because the truth is that the journeys that we had, it was not peaceful. It was hard. It was really hard. And fortunately, the universe gave us one another and our other, close support system people who we, co-learn and co-teach with. So we had that, which made it bearable, and now is just, absolutely brilliant. But in those early stages where you're trying to separate yourself from your beliefs, um, that's really hard. And we're doing everything that we can to make that part more fun. Because the sooner you start having fun, the sooner you move into zone 3.
Yeah. Yes, we do our best to make it gentle, kind, and fun.
Hmm.
Healing doesn't have to hurt.
Yeah. Go figure.
Yeah, doesn't have to hurt. So we want to thank you for joining us on the Peaceful Empowerment Work Show. And we look forward to chatting with you next week about money.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Until next time,
Bye.
keep
Yeah. Thanks,